place, we take it home $2,000. Second place, $500. Third and fourth place, taking $300 each. And finally, fifth through eighth, $100. Again, these guys are playing, making it here. They're already the cream of the crop, the top of the top. These are the best players right now in Clash Royale. Already, we've had Ender, Eric, and Flash be 3 of our winners tonight. We are looking for a fourth, but before we take a look at who the top 8 who made it to today are, let's quickly go over the rules here of Clash Royale North American Open. We run the standard tournament cap with the double deck format. Each player will submit 2 unique decks to us, each unique deck having to be at least 4 cards different. And to move on, it's very simple. Ellie, you just got to beat your opponent with both of your decks before they beat you with theirs, and boom, you're one step closer to the top. Now, let's take a look at the back wall and see who our top 8 are. Up first, we have Backstab versus Gray.
Oh, snap. And then we have T-Bone versus Naruto Uzumaki.
That's right. Third is going to be Santi versus Brian RT.
And then we have Mango versus Marcel P. Familiar name.
Yeah, this guy's already made it 3 times. We'll talk about him over at the couch. But again, making it is an amazing feat in and of itself. So sit back, relax, and get ready to watch the greatest Clash Royale duels you have ever seen. Now, guys, let's talk about what happened in the last broadcast. Flash, our first non-E winner.
Oh, you're right. We're moving through. We've dropped the letter grade.
Done with
Guys,
the E's.
I'm nervous for myself now. I don't know if there's room for
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you might be able to bring it back. There might be some more E's. But let's quickly talk about what we kind of saw, the styles of deck we saw played. We still had some expos, so some expos still in, but not nearly as much as the first broadcast.
Yeah, that's actually one of the most fun things in competitive games is watching metagames evolve. The very first broadcast, we saw literally all expo, right? And from then, it's gone on and slowly sort of drifted away as people are consistently bringing anti-expo decks. Yeah. And in fact, today,
I was expecting.
Yeah, I feel comfortable saying that today is the day that Expo died. The fewest Expos in the top 8 of any of our Coronation days so far.
Expo.
Wow, meta is changing. Meta is changing indeed. All right, so let's take a look at who we have our top 8. First of all, Marcel P is back again. So not only just making it to these top 8s is crazy, he's made it now 3 times. This is his 3rd time in a top 8 out of 4 broadcasts. So do you think that tonight is his best shot? Do you think he's ready to conquer all the foes?
I'm getting worried for him.
Really?
I think that when you get here so many times, you need to make sure that you figure out what's wrong so that you can actually close it out. I think it's... Okay, don't get me wrong. Making it here is actually really, really difficult, and the fact that Marcel P has done it 3 times is amazing, but only the winner gets the ticket to go to the arena battles, and I've seen this so many times, and all the times I've casted Clash Royale competitively, there are players out there that will make it to the top 8s multiple times, insane amounts of times, but never actually take the win, and that's concerning.
All right, well, we'll see if Marcel P is that guy. Any other names that are in today? I know Naruto is a kind of a big name in the community. Who else?
I think, actually, to your point about Marcel P having to learn what he's got to change in order to get there, adaptation is key, and I think he's doing it. Marcel P has brought Expo decks. In fact, when he made the finals, he had 2 Expo decks. Tonight, 0 Expos out of his decks later.
Scrapping it.
He's definitely learning from his mistakes and updating. But the players that I'm keeping an eye on are actually both in the first match. We've got Backstabx against Gray.
That sounds dangerous.
Yes,
was that yes for Gray or for Backstab?
Yes, for Gray.
Okay.
Yeah, Rainy. So we've actually seen this matchup before in the Super Magical Cup, and Rainy and I have actually been opposite sides. Gray is one of the most prominent Goblin Barrel players, and we saw in yesterday's show.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Isopo went very deep into it and went into the finals with a Goblin Barrel deck. We see a very similar deck here out of Gray, but Backstab. My man Backstab is here, slaying Expos left and right with double Royal Giant tonight.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Well, cool. We'll get to see that very soon.
All right. In the round of 8, it looks like Gray is going to open with Princess at the top. Typically a very, very good move. Princess has been having a rough time these last few days just because of the existence of Log, but with Goblin Barrel, and arrows. Princess is having a hard time.
The importance of a Furnace early on is not so much that Furnace is going to do a tremendous amount of damage, but it forces your opponent to react to it. It's going to slowly sit there and chip away damage unless you react, and that's why it's such a good tempo card.
Yeah, I think that using the Miner to tank for the Skeleton Army is very smart. It actually forced a relatively strong response from Backstab, so I don't think Gray will be feeling too badly about how that played out. But he does need to defend against the Musketeer. I think he does so fine.
Ooh, I like that play there. The Ice Golem is tanking for the tower, allowing that Goblin Barrel to be incredibly deadly. But Backstab, as we saw yesterday, is running both log and arrows, a new double spell combination that I don't think we've ever really seen in the history of Clash Royale, but the popularity of Skeleton Army, Goblin Barrel, Guards is really bringing that back.
Skeleton Army has, in very many ways, increased the amount of zap bait decks, and as a result, many more players are running multiple spells to make sure that they don't fall prey to the fact that they need more than one splash card to erase these cheap, kind of chumpy unit drops.
I love that combination there of Royal Giant backed up by a Furnace.
Ooh.
I mean, it's, whoa, here comes the Goblin Barrel in.
Mind game!
Oh, we got it!
Oh my
wow.
God.
And look at the damage being done right now, and with the log out of his hand.
Oh, man, and you can't take out the princess. Yes, great. Yes, yes.
So I love the Royal Giant Furnace combination because the Fire Spirits are able to blow up on little things like Goblins, Skeleton Army, the sort of stuff that you might throw down quickly to stop a Royal Giant. We'll see if he can punch through another 900-ish damage to take that tower down. Currently, though, Gray finds himself in control of the game.
Yeah, I think this deck is always very, very difficult to pull off because you need to work so hard to get damage onto your opponent's tower, and you need to make sure that you're holding up your defense as well. And so I think Gray is still not in the clear yet. He needs to make sure he continues to play well. Good timing on the Inferno Tower, just barely at the edge.
And one poor, unfortunate skeleton felt the wrath.
All right, that Royal Giant is getting really close to taking that tower down. I think the Fire Spirit might do it. No! Skeleton Army to defend the Goblin Barrel and the Miner. I think that's probably a smart choice. Here comes a log.
Ooh.
Not quite in time. And I think that Gray really has to leverage the Princess right now. What is Gray's last card? It's a Fireball.
Oh, lightning in Backstab's hand, though. We're going to win the game right now.
The timing was just a little bit off. I think that was definitely in Gray's hand. He actually had a win condition, I believe. But I think interesting that he revealed his Fireball so late.
Yeah, you think he might have thrown... It's possible that Goblin Barrel was the next card in the cycle, so he had to throw Fireball first for Goblin Barrel. But I agree, the better play there probably would have been Goblin Barrel first, followed up by a Fireball, because it clears out all the skeletons and whatnot around.
Okay. So you mentioned playing Furnace early on. Is it a good idea to play other spawners like that early too for the same reason, or is it just Furnace?
I think just like cards like Elixir Collector, it's one of the best times to have it would be in your opening hand. There's not a significant offense being built by your opponent. You're kind of waiting to see what the other person does. Furnace is a really good pass kind of play. We're both hitting 10. I don't want to attack.
Okay.
Furnace on the board. You
know.
have to deal with the Fire Spirits, and your opponent kind of has to attack into you, which is always an advantageous position because defending is so good in Clash Royale.
Sure. Now let's talk about the mind game that Gray pulled. Even though he lost, that was amazing to see.
So good.
If that happens to you once, is that going to happen again?
The best thing to do is just to slow down the drop of your spell. It's kind of tough because the more you slow it down, they'll probably get one stab off, and that kind of buys back the efficiency of the Goblin Barrel in many ways, but you just have to be careful, make sure that you identify correctly where the Goblin Barrel is landing, and that's kind of the strength of the Goblin Barrel. It really is a card that as you play your opponents more and more and more, you start to find the effectiveness of that card. I think Gray just found it a little bit too slow in that match, was not able to really capitalize on it, but let's see. Let's see if he can do it this game.
Backstab has to switch decks as he already won with his first deck. He's actually playing 2 Royal Giant decks. This is another Royal Giant deck. But one wrinkle of the second deck that he didn't have before was the Archers. The Archers can be split, one going down each lane, and that's a great little passive defense. If you're not really sure what your opponent's going to do, one Archer in each lane will defend against Miners, Goblin Barrels, and other sorts of nasty stuff that might surprise you.
Royal Giant in front of the tower. That signals to me that Backstab really wants to make sure he has another card to play, possibly Lightning. No, it's going to be Archers. And I don't know what else he's going to add onto this push. One of the things that's been really impressing me about the Royal Giant is it seems to survive long enough that Backstab has the opportunity to gain Elixir to throw spells like Fireball and Lightning, and we've seen that done so many times and really opening up Gray's tower for damage.
Absolutely. In both decks, he's running at least one spawner building, a building that produces troops at a steady rate, except I think Tombstone is probably going to be a little worse here than Furnace in terms of clearing out troops, but it seemed very effective there at blocking the Inferno Tower.
All right, the log has been used to clear out the Princess, and we know that Fireball is out of hand. Gray actually might benefit a lot from throwing the Goblin Barrel, and here it comes. And it's going to be right in the front, trying to mind game it. Oh, he gets away from the zap. But this is a big thing. So he chose position number 3, and that's really risky because then it's going to go towards the Tombstone in the middle. If you choose position 3, you want to push it to the left side of the arena so that it goes straight to the tower. That or choose position number 2, which is below.
You can already see why Gray is such a Rainy fan favorite.
Yeah,
Yep.
the mind games are on point.
And it's exciting. I mean, these are some of the most fun games to cast. Whenever Grays turns up in a big tournament, I'm thrilled from the casting perspective because they're so much fun.
Especially the last few moments of the match can be very explosive when players choose to disobey kind of the spell holding for Goblin Barrel, and you can see a lot of damage being done really quick. But Skeleton Army on top of Royal Giant, and that log just bowled through everything. Again, mind games, the Miner to tank for the Goblins. The Skeleton Army is getting held up by the Goblins themselves, and the Miner gets a few good swings despite the fact that Backstab dropped 2-3 elixir drops to try to stop it.
That is the most orderly filed line of skeleton armies I've ever seen. Those were like going on a field trip.
Me first.
Madeline.
Yeah, right? They had the responsibility buddies.
Responsibility. Yeah, I like this from Gray. I think this is one of the things that he needed to do earlier in the last match is start cycling his Fireball more. Nice positioning on the Archers will stop the Inferno Tower from tagging onto the Royal Giant, and that actually might make all the difference. This Royal Giant is about to connect in a very big way. Log coming out. Is there another card to punish that log usage? I think that Backstab, or rather Gray, really has to make sure that he's responding to these drops of spells on Backstab's end with spells of his own to make sure that he's always trading with them.
Yeah, it's tough for Backstab because he wants to use his log and his zap on offense, especially zap on the Inferno Tower to reset it, log on the Skeleton Army. That's so dangerous. Oh, here it goes for the win!
Wow.
So threatening. He had to use them on offense, but that was leaving him vulnerable to the counterpunch, right?
Yeah.
The Goblin Barrel being thrown, the Miners showing up. He managed it very, very well, though, and it felt like Gray never really had control of the pacing of the game there.
Yeah, well, there is
congrats.
congratulations to Backstab now being our first semifinalist of Coronation Day number 4.
Yeah.
Sorry, great down.
Backstab, I mean, this is what I'm talking about, right? Backstab is actually so good. I mean, many people, I think, would have crumbled to the pressure of having Princess, Skeleton Army, Goblin Barrel just constantly being pushed. And one thing that Gray was doing consistently, too, even fighting against Royal Giant, he would put the Inferno Tower down, and the Royal Giant would be shooting the tower. He would spend 2 elixir on the Ice Golem to shove the Royal Giant back just a teensy bit. Royal Giant would retarget to the Inferno Tower,
wow.
saving his tower health. Despite that, Backstab still knew that all these options were available and was able to overcome Gray as an opponent.
Speaking of Royal Giant, let's take a look at our first replay with that big old guy.
Check out the Lightning there. With Lightning in the first deck and Zap in the second deck, in both situations he had the ability to reset Inferno Tower, which is the #1 enemy of a Royal Giant. Royal Giant's so good against Expo, but we've seen all these Expo decks having Inferno Tower in them that you have to have an answer to it if you're going to play Royal Giant at the highest level.
Big Fireball connection takes down the Inferno Tower and the Princess, and the log clears out Skeleton Army and provides a lot of uptime for the Royal Giant. The big thing about it is...
We are now down to just our top 4 players here, and they're moving on. We've got Backstab, T-Bone, Brian RT, and Mango.
What's your favorite here?
There was a lot of I don't know if I would call it surprises, but definitely things that have happened that have been interesting in terms of exchanges and lines of play and whatnot. I think we've seen a lot of underdog matches, you know, David versus Goliath kinds of things. I mean, I wouldn't call it that dramatic, but it's definitely interesting to see that these decks are facing off each other in more complicated ways than we maybe initially imagined. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of variety because we have, I believe, Expo, but also Lava Hound and Giant Bowler decks, and so a lot of and the Hog Lightning deck, of course, on the other side of the bracket, and of course Backstab still running that double Royal Giant. So
and we've got Miner Inferno.
And Miner is right, the most
Backstab
diverse,
and
so
Giant.
many
Diversity.
But enough of who we think. Christian L, you guys have seen a significant amount of pretty
Oh,
high level tournament play here.
You guys.
Yeah, what are you seeing? Who do you think's gonna win?
Well, no one's running Hog Freeze. Really sad about that. We haven't seen Freeze at all. Freeze is
Freeze is actually one of those cards that's really good at the top of the ladder, but not so great in tournament
What's
play.
it in tournament?
It is the only card, well, actually Rage and Freeze are the only card in the game that instead of scaling by hit points or damage, they scale with time. So a max level Freeze is like way better than a tournament cap Freeze. It's so that's a card you see it a lot in the ladder, but not always.
So we'll never see it.
We'll see it.
Quick reminder to all you guys out there, our next broadcast is going to be taking place Sunday the 30th, and then Monday the 31st for Halloween.
Ooh, spooky.
Wednesday
Bring your costume.
the 11th, all happening at 6 p.m., same place, same time. Yeah, we might be getting all costumed up here. Hopefully you guys are also costumed up. And then the Thursday after that Wednesday broadcast is actually going to be taking place at 8 p.m. So 2 hours different to give a little more West Coast
Yeah, we've got
openness.
3 more Thursday broadcasts, and it's going to be North American Open after dark.
After dark, the PM. I mean, wait, it's all actually technically in PM.
Okay, let's go to that bracket.
Yeah, let's take a look at the bracket right now. All right, this is what we've got up at the top again. Backstab, T-Bone, Brian RT, and Mango. And now we said for the heart, or for your mind, I guess it was Backstab.
Yes.
For you, Rainey. And we've got T-Bone for Rumham. Correct?
In my heart, and mind, and Lava Hound love and body, we're going with T-Bone. But of course, the bottom of the bracket's still very deadly. Like,
I'm going for Brian RT. I think Brian RT is the one to watch right
very
now.
sharp player.
I'm all about that backstab. That's
a sick name for sure.
That's such a good name.
Poor Mango. Hey, you know what? Somewhere there's an orange, there's a tangerine. They're all rooting for their buddy Mango.
Yeah.
They're all going for Mango. And hopefully,
The fruit crew.
Maybe we'll all get surprised tonight. Now, also, before the break, guys, we asked you guys to submit haikus to us.
And guess who
Yeah.
sent in our haiku?
Yeah, someone
for
sent us a
tonight?
haiku.
Drum roll, please.
It's gonna be Marcel P.
Found time to write it in between
He's like
getting bumped.
He's like throwing it, and he's like,
All right,
He'll be back. He'll be
guys.
back.
Now, for this experience, I want you all to count on your fingers the syllable and count very carefully, all right?
We're going to learn something about haikus
All right,
now.
Marcel P. I played 2 expos. Then I played only 1 expo.
You added an extra word.
Then
did it
I
right.
played only one expo.
He had an extra
Then
syllable.
he said then played.
Then
He
played.
didn't say then I
Somebody
played.
check the
Only
Twitter.
one expo.
Then played only
I'm gonna give it to
one
I'm gonna give it to Marcel.
Okay.
He's
He
a smart
deserves
guy.
this.
I'm
Give
gonna
him
go
a
back
win,
now.
Dang it.
I'm gonna go back and check the tweet.
We'll start it again. I believe
I'm
in you.
gonna check the tape.
I believe in you.
Now I
Now I
count.
counter it.
Now there we go.
Now I counter
I
it.
played
don't think
2
you
expos,
suffered
then
enough
played
this
only
week.
1 expo. Now I countered it. What I love about this is he's like giving a haiku of his life so far in the Clash.
Yeah.
Royale North American Open.
The best art comes from your own pain.
yeah.
Marcel
that's
P
so
is
true.
is even playing mind games with me now.
Yeah.
I'm not even a competitor in the tournament.
Well played, Marcel P. This is going way beyond the meta. Now, let's go ahead and pull up the decks for our first semi-final match of Coronation Day number 3. It is Backstabs versus T-Bone. Rumham, Rainey, walk us through these decks, and I guess since you guys are on opposite sides, to give us an argument for why one's going to win over the other.
So Backstab, I think, has some very great Royal Giant decks that he is playing. One thing that you need to really, really be careful of is the fact that Backstab is running Furnace, and that could potentially be a very big wrench in the system for T-Bone's Lava Hound deck. Not only based on the fact that he has a building to attract the Lava Hound in a different direction, but for the fact that Fire Spirits are chumpy cards that the Inferno Dragon is going to have a lot of problems getting past. And he has Skeleton Army on top of that. So I think Backstabx has a good deck matchup in that sense. Plus, Royal Giant gets very good, consistent damage on towers, and I think the safer choice is to always go with the Royal Giant. In that
I think the
case.
Inferno Dragon's going to have a really good matchup against both of those Royal Giants. The real catch is, of course, can he win with an X-Bow against double Royal Giant? I would say no, but my boy T-Bone has already beaten Naruto Uzumaki in the round
right.
of 8, who was running double Royal Giant. Can he do it again?
Yeah. Now, okay, if you are these players, so I guess we'll go on the side of Backstab first. Which deck are you bringing first?
I would bring, if I was going first, I would probably bring, the
Royal
Furnace
Giant
deck.
deck?
Furnace?
Yes, I would bring the Royal Giant deck. I would bring the Furnace deck first, because I think Furnace is very solid in terms of a card, very safe. You can really
Ooh,
feel out.
let's see.
Okay, yep, there it is.
Wow,
I think
well
it's
played.
perfect. It's perfect for scouting because it's a very safe drop. If they dropped an Expo, for example, you would not die instantly.
T-Bone's opening with his lovely old Lava Hound deck. I think I would have maybe opened with the Expo deck and just tried to play an Expo right off the bat and hoping my opponent doesn't have the Royal Giant. Steal that Expo game as soon as you can.
Ooh, Lava Hound taken up for the Inferno Dragon. Now notice that the Royal Giant got 3 shots and is 300 health down. That's already kind of, despite the fact that the Inferno Dragon was played, means that the defense was not necessarily as solid as T-Bone would have liked, but on the counterattack, T-Bone did a similar amount of damage, so they're pretty even.
Yeah. Now, Musketeer is low enough health that it will not threaten the tower. The tower will shoot it from a little bit longer range than the Musketeer's gun. Take it right
The
out.
Musketeer readies the shot and then dies before it can finish. Interesting fact, if you have any kind of slow or speed up for the tower slowing down or the musketeer speeding up, the musketeer will finish the shot.
That's a very good point. That used to be one of the best little lingering effects of poisons. That little tiny bit of slow would affect it. Ooh, wow. The Royal Giant has such a long range and targets buildings that he was able to shoot that tombstone from the river.
Uh-oh, Lava Hound is not protecting the Inferno Dragon, but I don't know. There's a big lightning, and that Royal Giant is going to go to town. Big question is, now you have 6 Elixir down. How do you stop this Lava Hound push? You need to place your Mega Minion smartly so that it doesn't get taken out by the other Mega Minion. This Skeleton Army might be the card of choice. Arrows is going to wipe it out.
Yeah, so he has arrows there. So if he can just let he just arrow him right as those lava pups come out, maybe that's why he felt really comfortable. Or, yeah, there it is. Or maybe that's why he felt comfortable kind of ignoring it, is because he had the ace in the pocket in order to take that thing out.
Still, fairly even trade, but in favor of T-Bone just a little bit. He's beginning to run away with it, and T-Bone, I mean, Backstab had to split up his damage on each of the towers, and you can see, take that difference in numbers, and it would be an even game, but no focus fire from Backstab. There's an aggressive Royal Giant drop, and Inferno Dragon is going to be the card to assist.
Best time. So there was 2 key things. The best time to drop the Royal Giants when your opponent just committed 7 Elixir in the air. Great opportunity. The one Fire Spirit jumped and did just enough damage to the Inferno Dragon. The Inferno Dragon took it down. I believe that... I'm so inconfident now with my numbers after the Fireball thing, but I think that the Lightning does 937 and the Inferno Dragon has 950 hit points. So just that little sliver, any amount of damage would be enough to take out the Inferno Dragon.
Game is coming down to the wire, but Lightning is on both players' hands. I actually think that playing the Furnace there, unless he's trying to find a health buffer to bait the Lightning Strikes out, is going to be...
Lightning now.
I think he needs to do it.
Lightning now.
What
He's got the Elixir.
Oh!
Yeah,
Okay.
tough. Actually, Backstab was one step ahead. He was already at lethal with Lightning, whereas T-Bone had to do 2. And so when you're in that situation, you know that your opponent, as long as you set up a good enough defense, has to cycle to the Lightning. So you play cards that make it as difficult as possible for him to get any kind of swinging damage. You saw T-Bone tried to go in with a Miner to get that one swing to change the tide of the match, but stopped by the Musketeer, which is not usually the best answer for a Miner, but...
I also think, though, he had to cycle. I don't think he actually had the Lightning in him. So even though he had 6, he's going, what do I play? So he has to spend 4, which is not the cheapest card in your deck, right? To get out there and had to wait those painstaking few extra seconds to get back up to 6 and then Lightning for the win.
Looking at the Miner though, if you place him right next to your opponent's tower and he pops up, and that's the closest thing to him, how does his targeting work? Like, why did the Musketeer distract him? Because it looked like he was just as close to the tower as the Musketeer.
So typically, troops will prioritize other troops instead of the tower. If they're both right next to each other and have not acquired a target, typically the troop will take precedence, even to the point where if the troop is a little far away, the attacking troop will actually take a few steps towards the unit and attack it. So it's actually pretty lenient.
Okay, and that's something that's...
The more you know.
It's good for all troops in the game, because obviously you want your attacking troops to hit things. Mine are sort of one of those few exceptions where you're really playing it to hit the tower and not other troops usually.
Gotcha.
Right, okay. So talk a little bit about switching lanes and deciding when to switch when you already have so much damage on one tower.
That was really tough. I think he saw a good opening. Okay, so Lava Hound was coming down the left lane, and he played Royal Giant going down the right lane. The reason why he switched lanes there was because the last time he played Royal Giant under the Lava Hound, what ended up happening was T-Bone put an Inferno Dragon behind the Lava Hound, did very good matchup, and ended up killing the Royal Giant, but then it's being tanked by the Lava Hound. By splitting it up, you're forcing the Lava Hound to be pretty much undefended down the other lane and becomes significantly less of a threat.
Okay.
It's the combination of the two, the synergy between the two cards that make them all the better.
I don't think he expected that to come down. Oh, wow.
Whoa.
A lot of skeletons just got killed by those
So much
arrows.
elixir.
There's an interesting choice. I'm not sure why T-Bone would want to miner the Tombstone of all things, but he knows something that we don't.
Royal Giant played in exchange for the Lava Hound, and we see the situation where the Lava Hound will actually protect cards played behind it, an interaction that gets very complicated to push past, and definitely think that the strategy to go here for Backstab is to separate the two. There we see it. Mega Minion gets dropped, but it cannot be dropped further than the river.
Oh, wow, he missed the Inferno Dragon. Oops, indeed. Okay, 2 things. The reason why the Tombstone is so far up is to pull that Lava Hound over. You saw that zap. The zap was meant to target the Inferno Dragon, and reset his heated up shot. But those can be a little tricky to catch because what you do is you're not actually targeting where the sprite is, you're targeting where the shadow is.
Yes.
Air units always look a little like they're one
really?
tile off. The
It's like
shadow
fish in
on the
water.
Right. The shadow on the ground is where they truly are on the grid.
Whenever I try to lightning fish in water, it's always tough.
Yeah. You just kill every single thing in the way.
I was like, dang it. Fishing game, I'm sorry.
So here we go. Triple legendary there on T-Bone's deck, where Backstab is playing a much more modest and free-to-play accessible deck there with just a log in it. Hey, remember when people were really upset about opening log? Log used to not be so good, and people were like, oh, I got my first legendary, but it's a log. Now log is one of the most played cards. He did it again!
Yeah,
He zapped the tower a second time. Oops.
Fish in the water.
Backstab, you're better than this.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a greedy play as well. You know that, okay, it's, what, 60 damage on the tower if you zap it? You can make those small optimizations, but at what cost, right?
Yeah. I think that just goes to experience. Backstab is a very good player, but who has experience playing consistently against Inferno Dragon? Not a super popular card, and I think it just, if you don't have those practices, it's easy to make one or two tile mistakes.
Those pups go.
He did it a third time!
Oh, wow. Oh.
I think Backstab might be on tilt right here.
On tilt is a good way to put it. Gonna be 1-1 in 3 seconds here. Man, what a tough one to lose.
There it is. T-Bone tying it up 1-1 against Backstab. Again, one of these two players will be moving on to the finals, playing for $2,000 and the chance to move on to the arena battles.
Good news. Well, hey, good news for old Rummy Hammy that T-Bone takes a game and goes to a critical game 3. But better news for Backstab, Inferno Dragon is out of the match. Already won.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about trying to aim pesky zaps on shadowed air units.
Done.
Done.
What's his strategy now?
Well, let's see. T-Bone here is rocking.
I thought you had like a list of his strategies.
Yeah.
He just like sends you.
Here's where T-Bone is in trouble because we're looking at an Expo deck for his second deck, and Backstab is running double Royal Giant. So T-Bone has an uphill battle.
Okay.
Got to win with an Expo. He's put it off. He's played Lava Hound games 1 and 2, hoping to put off the inevitable, but now he's got to face the music and try to somehow shoot down a tower.
Rainey, when talking about Inferno Dragon and Inferno Tower, when do you want to, if you have like a zap or a lightning or a way to stop that damage so it kind of has to revamp, does it matter when you, is there like a beautiful time to do it? Is it right in the beginning? Is it like, what's that magic number?
It's definitely in the middle before it charges up to the critical zones, right? Because it does like 30 damage a tick and it goes up
There's
incrementally.
a max. Is there a max?
There is a max. I think the Inferno Dragon's max is like 355,
crazy.
something like that. Inferno Dragon is, Inferno Tower is somewhere in the thousands. Is that right?
It's confusing because it's DPS versus damage. I believe
you're right.
the max of an Inferno Dragon does 350 damage per shot, but it's every 0.4 seconds, so it gets pretty. It takes about 4.5 seconds though to warm up to that point, and of course that starts all over if you zap it. But of course, hey Backstab, you got to hit them zaps. Zaps actually got to hit the card.
Yeah. To put it into perspective, made up numbers, right? The Inferno Tower, for example, will do, and the dynamic is the same, the Inferno Tower will do to a giant maybe half its health in the first kind of 5 seconds, and then the second half of its health in like 1 second, right? So you want to zap it before it gets to the point where it's the second half of the health.
We see that a lot with
Zapping
Inferno.
too soon actually is not a wise.
It's not terrible, but it's not optimal,
Okay.
right? And of course, when these games are coming down to just 100 points or so,
You want optimal.
Right. Backstab playing very, very cautious. I like how Backstab is not committing a Royal Giant to the board. He knows that he doesn't need Royal Giant to attack. T-Bone needs the Expo to win the game. He's played Skeleton Army and Archers, splitting them in both lanes to sort of force T-Bone to go one way or the other here. Ooh,
There it is.
the log actually betrayed him. The log knocked the Royal Giant out of Inferno Tower range, and now he can just shoot from outside the range there.
No way.
Still a great opportunity to drop an Expo for what it's worth maybe in the left lane.
The fact that one guard was alive mitigated a lot of the mistake that T-Bone had, but still this Royal Giant is going to town. Look at that. Oh, so
Boink.
slow. Gets one more.
Only about, what was that, 159 damage a shot? I was trying to do the math. I think he had 1690 and went down to 1531. So it's actually not as powerful per shot, but the huge hit point pool of the Royal Giant means that if you don't have an answer for it, it just takes off. It's actually a lot like Expo in that way. That Expo, you can get it down to half or a third health, but then it's still
If
gonna
it's still
choke your
it's
tower.
still alive.
And we see here the challenge of the Expo. I mean, look at that. Both 6-cost cards paired up against each other. Royal Giant swaggers away with 60% or more health.
Over half
Yeah,
health
it looks
and
like
it's an
70% health. So even if this Inferno Tower takes it here, at what cost? You just spent 11 elixir. I don't know if he even needed to play, for example, that Mega Minion. He could have just let it time out. Yeah.
Trying to fireball the tower. I don't know if that hit, actually.
The Inferno Tower is now off the board. Maybe that's why he was so anxious to kill it. Oh, because there's already another one. He's probably so anxious to kill it because, of course, he wants to be able to free up the Royal Giant to attack. I don't know if I don't make the same mistake though that your clanmate did and get too aggressive with those Royal Giants, because it only takes one Expo to take down a whole tower, whereas I don't think Royal Giant has that level of offensive upside.
I think Backstabx feels safe because he has Tombstone galore.
That's a very good point. Tombstone's going to cover in the 6.
Yeah, and he's just going to keep cycling and positioning back and forth between those two spots because that's the hardest to spell and gain value as well. See that Fireball now committed to the tower rather than Tombstone, which means that Backstabx probably is just going to have that Tombstone up for all of eternity.
Tombstone, I'm sorry, T-Bone's actually not too far behind. It's only a couple hundred points of damage there. Mostly because he's been able to just slam value Fireball. Oh, he did it again!
Oh.
Now it's T-Bone's turn to make fatal errors. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. He's still loosely in range, just barely. Oh, that Ice Spirit, the 2 seconds freeze allowed the Inferno Tower to warm up there.
Yeah, it's a very precarious situation. Actually, the Skeletons are taking up for the Mega Minion, and it's going to get in there and do a lot of damage to the Ice Golem. And the Skeletons get slowed up. There's a crossbow being placed defensively, trying to clear away the Tombstones. 2
Tombstones, yeah.
And the Royal Giant will have to come deep into enemy territory to take down that crossbow. But there's no reason that Backstabx needs to be attacking anyways, because that Expo is not going to be in range of anything valuable.
He's in triple Fireball range, I believe, or at worst, just add a log or a zap. So at this point, the gameplay is do not let Expo beat you. Or even 2 Expo.
Or having your opponent play 2.
Royal Giant's kind of bossing both of them, though, to be honest. He's going to take this one out by the river just as the other one sort of times out.
And that's really all Backstabx needs to do. You only need to take down the Expo that is in range of your tower.
And he just wants to stay as close to 10 elixir as humanly possible while dropping ground-based units to soak. He's 1 elixir away now from getting out another Royal Giant.
Oh, wow, that was...
He was on the cycle. You could tell that he was looking at it and really wanted to get the right card in there.
Yeah, he had the zap too, so that would have been a saving grace.
The nice part is this is going to force T-Bone to spend some elixir there to stop the punishing Royal Giant, and that slows down T-Bone's ability to continually set up Expos, giving Backstabx a break to set up another Tombstone.
Backstabx looks like he's got this.
Good
1 more Fireball.
Game.
6 elixirs, all he has to do is maybe put another Tombstone down, archers, anything like that, and then Fireball for the victory. Oh, Ops to go. That's just pretty smart, actually. Ops to go with the Royal Giant just to prevent.
Just in case.
Yeah, prevent any scary Expo from coming down.
There you have it. Backstabx picking up the 2nd victory, winning with both of his decks, and moving on as our first finalist of Coronation Day number 4. Congratulations, Backstabx. Congratulations.
I love Royal Giant. I mean, I remember, and Rainy remembers because this is how long we've been casting together, that when Royal Giant came out, it was hands down the worst card in the game at its release. Absolutely.
Man.
It was part of. Yeah, let's watch the replays and we can talk about it later.
No, let's talk about the Royal Giant. Here's a replay of said card.
Royal Giant doing a lot of work for Backstabx.
All the lightning.
This, I mean, the fact that, so the first time he actually did this play twice. One of them he lightning without the assistance of the furnace. The second time, that 1 Fire Spirit changes the dynamic of the push. The last health point is always the one that counts.
Yep.
The existence of that Inferno Dragon compared to not. Biggest difference.
There's that knockback in the log there.
Yeah. And then what happens here is just out of range. Royal Giant outranges every defensive tower in the game, save Mortar and Expo, the siege buildings. So being able to be knocked back out of the range of the Inferno Tower and just shoot it from far away was critical. That's 5 elixir that was spent and didn't do anything at that point.
Ooh, talk a little bit more about that log Royal Giant mistake. How do you see something like that coming? It's such a little thing, but it really kind of hurt in there.
It's a kind of new interaction because Log didn't used to knock back Royal Giant. That was something that happened at the last game update, the last patch to the game. So with Royal Giant also being kind of a new addition to the meta game because of all of the Expo decks, it's possible there's just not a lot of experience. I'm like, okay, I need to Inferno Tower, but oh no, there's Skeleton Army. I actually like how Backstabx put him in a bad position. Skeleton Army's coming. You have to log the Skeleton Army, but to do so is going to knock back the Royal Giant, hopefully safely out of range.
Whew, mind games indeed. Let's go ahead now and pull up the bracket, as we now have one of our finalists. That is going to be moving on. It's Backstabx. Now up next, Brian RT versus Mango. Now I am rooting for Brian RT to take the whole thing. But in this just matchup alone between Brian RT and Mango, who is the player to watch? Who?
Change the decks around. I love seeing the return of Royal Giant. I've got a root personally
Sure, of course.
for Backstab.
Okay.
Something interesting is Brian and I have scoured through the balance changes of the times, kind of gone back in history and looked at all of that stuff. And in our research, the Royal Giant actually received many buffs to its hit points, to its damage, to
its
numerous
beard.
things, to its beard.
Yeah.
It wasn't until that range increase hit that all of that started mattering a lot.
Gotcha.
Before the range increase, they shot stats at it left and right, and it just was not played. And then that range buff came in and everything changed.
Interesting factoid, all 4 decks are running Mega Minion and the Log.
Yeah, Log's so good.
Speaking of things changing over time, honestly, Log was in fact, Log was so underrated and so many people wanted that card to be better that there's a hashtag, love the Log, right? To give the Log some love.
That's awesome.
2 balance updates later, Log is, according to the top 100 decks, the most played card in the game.
Holy
and we're
snap.
seeing it here in the finals.
Where does Ice Spirit fall now? Do you know?
I believe 2nd or 3rd. It's also quite up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I
One
kind
thing-
of want to see you do a log impression. Honestly.
He even got the proud jacket.
Hashtag love the
You're
log.
welcome.
There we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is the finals. Backstab versus Bryant, 0-0. Let's see who will go up.
Who's
Spirit
gonna
Hog
take
Rider is
it?
going to be the opening card, but between Skeleton Army and the Furnace, not going to make it through there.
Just a reminder, too, we are playing now a best of 5, so these players have to win 3 times now.
Pretty crazy.
Now, Royal Giant versus Hog Rider is actually a matchup that I think is a lot more interesting. You're racing with one beatdown card against another beatdown card. Royal Giant in many ways is kind of just the more expensive ranged version of the Hog Rider. And I think that typically in matchups like these, kind of like Giant Poison versus Giant Three Musketeer, the higher elixir cost card usually wins out.
Little efficiency error there. I think Backstab, you probably want that arrows to hit the tower as well. You never know if that extra 100 damage is going to matter.
Did Ice Spirit just jump the log, or does log not actually kill Ice Spirit?
The
Log
Ice
will
Spirit
kill
can
Ice Spirit.
jump.
Wow, he just
jump the log.
jumped the log.
Yeah, quite the Olympic jumper. Skeleton Army is going to be so good here against that Hog Rider. It's going to be up to Brian RT to start playing that log a little in advance. You almost want to play it as a pre-fire before you actually even see the Skeleton Army. Because if you pause and wait for the card to cast, Skeleton Army can get hundreds of damage in prior to actually pulling it
Especially
up.
because when you're playing it defensively too, they drop right on top of the card. So immediately after their deploy time is finished, they just all take turns swinging at the hog.
Very accurate placement by Backstab there. That is the exact most central square that you can play the Musketeer while it'll still go onto the left side. Waited till the Princess walked just in range and was able to take it off, but still go towards the tower that he wanted to go
Oh,
towards.
interesting. He's going to try to fight Skeleton Army with Skeleton Army, but log is the answer. Actually, he's going to get 2 swings. 1 swing, fine.
And actually,
2-1.
Another little minor efficiency thing there. If Backstab had waited just an extra second or 2, the tower might have been able to lock onto the Hog Rider and get an extra shot or 2 in and prevented that.
Yes.
Every little point of damage matters. You can tell how close this can get.
Misses the tower again with the arrows, and now the Royal Giant makes it across. Take a look at this ice, which is slowing down the Royal Giant. So slow. Hog Rider on the other side. Didn't jump. Still going to have to go across to the furnace. If you look at the tiles, it's not exactly 3-4, but at least if it's 3 away, it'll have that effect.
Brian Ortiz changed his cycle up a little bit now. If you notice that instead of actually trying to log with the Hog Rider, he just made sure to have the Princess down in advance. The Princess already being on the board, she could clear out the Skeleton Army theoretically. Oh, what a lightning!
Big lightning.
Wow.
Has to play the Skeleton Army in late response, but still you see how effective that card is. That was a Hog Rider that should have gotten 3 swings off, but because Skeleton Army was played, really mitigated the damage.
Backstab has a little bit of an elixir advantage. Leaking a little bit there, but he has a little bit of an elixir advantage still. The important thing is, it actually lets him get a free furnace down, but he's really got to find a good, powerful opening for his Royal Giant to come through. Wow.
Again, the lightning, and there's no Skeleton Army. It's a little bit late.
2 swings.
I mean, talk about momentum, right? Each time the log is coming faster and faster and faster, and the lightning is opening more opportunities. But I think Brian RT is.
Oh no!
I think Brian RT is having to pay his price for throwing out lightnings that often, and that Royal Giant gets up and does a good bit of damage.
Just like that.
Backstab wasted his log there. He expected a Skeleton Army, but he expected it just a little too soon and ended up firing that too early. And oh no, I think Oh, no, okay, the lightning won't kill it, but a lightning plus a log should kill it, or of course the lightning plus hog rider here.
Plays the log in advance to make sure. Oh, there it is. The combo. I actually think Brian RT played that really, really well.
Yes, absolutely.
Hog Lightning is something where if you continuously play it back-to-back, you can start to gain an elixir disadvantage. Because oftentimes, well, the Hog Rider is 4 elixir that never does any damage to any
It doesn't
troop.
take anything off.
Yes, it does not remove any elixir from the board. Lightning as well is actually tough to justify. You saw him lightning a furnace, and then the tower. That's spending 6 elixir to remove 4 at best, right? So eventually you're gonna have to pay for your sins, right? And that happened with the Royal Giant drop.
If you're Brian, do you play the same deck again next time?
Well, you know, I mean, the weird thing is that it's because Backstab's playing double Royal Giant, and it's almost like it doesn't matter because you know you're playing against a Royal Giant deck. I think the question is actually more in Backstab's court of which of his 2 different Royal Giant decks might match up better against this. Like, for example, he might have rather had his Tombstone variant there, because at least if Tombstone gets lightninged,
There's still some
not
damage.
as much elixir, there's some skeletons there, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sweet. All right. Well, again, this is the finals, guys. So Brian RT, my man, is up 1-0. Now we're going to game number 2. Let's see if he can increase this lead.
I'm really impressed with Brian RT's Hog Rider play. I think it's been a long time since we've seen a Hog Rider so precise and well placed across a match. In a long time.
You know what's crazy? He considers himself a noob Hog Rider player. Hog Rider is actually not his default deck style. You know, it looks. You could convince me that he's played it for years, but this is actually not his default play. He's also a relatively new Expo player as well. He was a big giant Poison and Minor Inferno player in a lot of the tournament scenes.
Usually he just started playing the game yesterday.
Funny thing,
He's a brand new player.
Backstab only recently picked up Expo as a counter, or Royal Giant's counter over the Expo, so both of them are actually sort of taking their new theory-crafted decks on a walk down the boulevard.
Here we go, playing the Hog Rider deck again. Here comes a big log, but you really, I mean, based on the last match, it really comes to double elixir time when Brian RT can play those Hog Rider lightning log combos that it really gets dangerous. Still, Ice Wizard gets a bunch of swings off.
Right.
Not the worst in the world, but...
Backstab, even if he loses again to this Hog Lightning deck, which, you know, it'll be interesting to tie it up, he's actually in a still relatively comfortable position because it's up to Brian RT to lock down a win with his Expo deck against
all the Royal Giants.
All the Royal Giants in the world. And we saw how Backstab played that matchup with expert game plans. Oh no, Ice Wizard. No, there's a good situation for Ice Wizard. He's real good at fighting fire spirits.
Makes sense.
I think he's gonna die here, though. Oh no, he's standing
one.
He's standing right out of range of the tower. He lives for just a little bit longer. No.
Oh.
Man, the noodles.
That,
Those noodles.
I've been watching Walking Dead recently, and that felt like a recreation of a scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
3 undead against 1 wizard.
Yep.
You mean, is it a bat covered in spikes?
Hold on, wait a minute. Spoiler alert. Let's not go any further.
You probably just made some people really mad.
Spoil nothing.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Furnace has to be played defensively.
Oh, it didn't hit the furnace.
Yeah, missed the furnace.
Furnace is actually played far up enough that I don't know if it actually can reach the tower.
Here's the
with
catch with
lightning.
Royal Giant. I mean, I understand that Backstab feels like he has to go for it because if you just sit back, you're just going to get lightninged and Hog Ridered out of the game. Royal Giant is really not worth the 6 elixir purely on offense. Kind of like a lot of other cards that we see, cards like, you know, I don't know, Baby Dragon or Skeletons, Fire Spirits. On their own, they're not huge offensive threats. Royal Giant's that way. His stats are not actually great. The value comes in the long range and catching your opponent off guard.
Yeah, that Hog Rider actually fought through the furnace, got a swing, baited out the Skeleton Army drop, and then Brian RT gained a 1 elixir advantage by logging it, and then spent that advantage by just straight lightning the tower with the Musketeer as well.
I think this tower is just out of log range, but I could be wrong here. Let's see how much log this
Find
thing.
out.
Oh!
Just that was, could not have been more right.
It was 9. No, it's 9% more than an arrows, and an arrows
Yes.
does a little under 100. So that's a toughie one right there.
There we go, and now we have Backstab 1 game away from being out. So
Yes.
Brian RT is 1 game away from winning, but he has used 1 deck to win twice.
Right, so
he
Hog
has to
Lightning
switch
is
out.
out of here.
He's
right?
gone. So, like you said, he's gonna be going against. He has to use his Expo deck against 2 Royal Giants. How have we seen players in the past go against an unfavorable matchup using Expos? I know a lot of defensive plays we might be seeing, right? They're playing in the middle sometimes to get that. You call it the leapfrog? The
hog jump?
No, I'm talking about the leapfrog.
the leapfrog.
Oh, yes,
the
leapfrog for the
next
Expos?
one.
Yes. I think that'll be very, very important just because there's no way, really, if Backstab is playing with good focus, that he's going to see the Expo drop and the deploy time is just taking forever to tick up. There's no way that Backstab will be like,
What to do? What to do?
no, not going to drop anything. And then the Expo starts shooting. There's no way that's going to happen. So you need to place your first Expo behind. Have Backstab play things into it.
Right.
Win the trade, and then play your next Expo.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's see if we can do it.
In only 3 Coronation Day broadcasts, we've seen the finals go both ways.
Yes.
Yesterday, we had a 3-0
Yeah.
sweep as Flash won, and in the first Coronation Day, Ender came back from a 2-0 deficit to win 3 in a row and win. So this can kind of go either way.
That's what's great about this game. Like these guys aren't they're not a resource down. They're not any sort of items down. Like they still have it's again strategy every single new round.
Despite the fact that the Inferno Tower was burning away at the Royal Giant, the Expo still got taken down before it could really do significant damage to anything else, the tower or the furnace.
One of the advantages for Brian RT is that his Expo deck doesn't have Skeleton Army in it, which actually is pretty vulnerable to all the logs that are being played around. So having guards instead, at least they'll survive and do a little bit of damage to that Royal Giant. The key of all Royal Giant decks when you're on offense is to clear out anything in front of that Royal Giant, and if he's at maybe half health or more, he can do a really great amount of damage.
Musketeer makes its way across. Ice Golem will tank for the Mega Minion. And I think that's smart positioning for Brian RT. Here comes the defensive Expo, going to shoot down the furnace, and I actually think that that's a good target choice. Expo's not going to do much damage to the Royal Giant, but to deny further Fire Spirits, I think is really going to help Brian RT in the long run.
And even a great counter there, that one Elixir Ice Spirit did a great job at soaking those 2 Fire Spirits. When those 2 Fire Spirits hit the tower while the tower is shooting the Royal Giant, you're looking at 500 damage on your tower that you cannot afford to do.
Again, just storing Elixir. I think Brian RT has to try again. He has to try middle Expo again.
Backstab's doing the same thing that he was doing the last time he had to fight an Expo deck, which is be very, very passive. Split your cards as much as possible. Don't give him any sort of big opening. Save the Royal Giant to counter Expos, not as a primary offensive tool.
Tough situation, that left side tower, Backstab is more than happy to just start lightning out. Now that he knows that the Expo is off the field, he plays the Royal Giant in the back, and by the time the next one is positioned, he has cards in place to stop that Expo from targeting right onto the tower.
And I think this shows just how deadly it can be if you, wow, the last second lightning saves the day there. That Mega Minion might get a swing or two, but obviously, oh no! The Inferno Tower, if that can get zapped,
There's the push.
Wow, I didn't realize the Ice Golem could do that. The Ice Golem, what happened there? The Ice Golem displaced the Royal Giant, and of course, anytime a unit gets stunned, frozen, or displaced, it retargets. It pushed the Royal Giant just a square over, and it started changing back to the Inferno Tower. But big help here is that the next Royal Giant can outrange it.
Wow, the Ice Spirit actually freezes up the Mega Minion. Mega Minion actually targeted onto the other Mega Minion because of the log pushback, and it's gonna get a lot of value here. There's a big lightning. And I think we're just one spell away from seeing Backstab start his comeback against Brian RT.
Got to cycle, though, and not lose in the meantime. Granted, he has over 2,000 health on both towers, so I believe he's safe. But we saw, actually, yesterday, in the game-deciding final game, Flash almost lost to a final push when he was spell cycling.
It's so interesting that no Inferno Tower was played, but I think we're just waiting for the next lightning for the game to finish up.
There it is, the good game coming up from Backstab. He is staying in this, picking up his first victory here in the finals. Coronation Day number 2.
Now, the interesting thing is Brian RT has actually many opportunities to kind of roll the dice and play an opening Expo and try to see if he can squeeze one Expo in during the time.
Well, and sometimes one, like we've been seeing, is all it takes.
Yeah.
One Expo can
and
do
really, even if it doesn't actually take the tower down, if it gets low enough that you have time to start throwing fireballs and take that tower down, that's actually a very viable way to beat a bad matchup. Right. Sure. So I think that is definitely something that Brian RT has to keep in mind. Start throwing out the Expos early as you can. And
is that taking kind of greedy? Is that a greedy thing to do when you're just trying to like, oh, I'm going to throw this out and hope my opponent doesn't have a match? Because if he does have a match, then you're kind of down there.
Yeah, It's a very good point. For example, if in the opening moments of the game, you get your first 6 elixir and you throw down that Expo and then your opponent just throws down the Royal Giant in response, as we saw, that Royal Giant is going to survive with 60% health. Then you have maybe 3 elixirs to stop a Royal Giant. He can drop another 3 elixir on them, for example, and make a minion to stop your counter to the Royal Giant, and you get put into a bad spot.
On a high level, think about this. Siege decks want to win from their side of the board, right? They just sit there. They're not really adept at attacking. They set up something on their side of the board. You have to answer, something like an Expo. The Royal Giant sitting very far back, deep into Backstab's side of the board while shooting the Expo, challenges the Expo deck to do something that it can't normally do. Come across the river and kill this big high health thing, because otherwise, your Expo doesn't have a chance.
Racing Fireball versus Lightning, as it seems. And there it is, Royal Giant behind the tower. He knows that there's no way to cycle the cards fast enough before double elixir.
He could have another one very soon and play it on the left side, I believe, because he had already played the Expo and then he played the Ice Golem right after it. Now guards have come out in Mega Minion. He definitely has another Expo, but I guess he's holding it for the Royal Giant to get off the board now.
Yeah. Then he has to consider the other cards that he has to deal with as well.
Look at Musketeer. No river can stop her.
That's one of the longest ranges in the game for any ranged attackers. Longer range than Wizard, longer range than Archers. Musketeers shoot very far.
Gets frozen up. Not the best timing, but not bad. Expo again being set up in the center field, and hope to see another Lightning. There it is. Backstab is happy to just sit there and lightning the Expos down.
Absolutely. I mean, you can kind of see that by keeping that Expo low health, there's never going to be an opportunity for Brian RT to keep that Expo alive long enough to then play a second Expo. And if he ever plays an Expo by the river, eat a Royal Giant, buddy.
It's very tough to position the Expo in a way such that it cannot be taken down by the Royal Giant or the Lightning.
A really good advantage here too is that there's not a lot of, actually not a lot of redundancy in Brian RT's deck in terms of where your spells want to go. You're always going to want to fireball that Mega Minion. You're always going to want to log the guards, and there's really nothing else in there that you're dying to use those spells on. So it makes it really easy for Backstab to sit back and just use the appropriate card at the appropriate time.
Here comes a log onto the Royal Giant and actually gets frozen up for just a little bit. The Ice Golem is going to die and slow the Royal Giant down again, but still so much damage being put onto the Expo. It's really looking tough for Brian RT right now, and this was very intentional from Backstab. I mean, you bring 2 Royal Giant decks into the Coronation Day, you're expecting that both of your Royal Giant decks are going to be able to end up closing out the game, and we're seeing the result of Backstab making that decision.
I think this is exactly what Backstab wanted. He wanted to be in the finals against an Expo deck, knowing that that's all it's really going to take for him to take the game is just not lose to an Expo deck with a Royal Giant. That's one of the best matchups, I think, in the metagame right now.
And that's the only thing right now, again, that Brian RT can use. Like, he has to win with this Expo deck.
Yes. And that's one of the challenges of the double deck format. You have to bring 2 decks that you can't bring anything that's too specialized. Anything that's too bad of a matchup. I was really surprised in the first Coronation Day to see so many Expos, because that's a very predictable deck. It's powerful when it does its strategy, but it's very straightforward in what it does. It commits a lot of cards to its game plan, and it doesn't adapt super well. And that's what Backstab is taking advantage of here in the 4th Coronation Day. Oh, wow, Fire Spirits clear that up.
Mitigated a lot, but Royal Giant should be able to be played just in time. We'll see. Does not actually eliminate the Skeleton Army, Had to be a combination of both the log and the Fireball, but really for the 6 for 6, it's not feasible.
I mean, great play there by, oh no, that Mega Minion got chopped up, no! But yeah, very great play by Backstab. They're knowing to cycle as cheaply as possible in order to get back to his key defensive card.
Yeah, and he's just slowly chipping away.
He's got a little bit more time. That Furnace will buy some time. Once it locks on, oh, great Lightning. Now he's got to get another health out though, because that thing could lock onto the tower very soon. Is the log going to come down and clear him out? It is.
It does.
Oh, the Lightning though.
Yeah, it doesn't have enough health in that Lightning.
Yep, Lightning's going to close out the match, and 2-2. Brian RT is having a really tough time breaking out of this matchup, and I think that Backstab is just going to be happy to continue this trade of terror.
Yeah, there we go. Backstab tying it up now, 2-2 in the finals.
Oh man.
Brian RT, Backstab, they are both 1 game away from $2,000 and moving on. My question to both of you is this. Now that Brian RT, obviously, he's seen Backstab's decks, right? He's seen the Royal Giants. Do you think playing so much against him and obviously not coming up as a victor is enough for him to create some sort of strategy, or is it just a bad matchup?
I really wonder if he's also going on tilt, right? You start to get worried. Like we saw this, almost like Marcel started to realize that he just couldn't beat Ender's deck in this rematch. It's really tough. I think just like we saw with Uzumaki probably shouldn't have lost to the Expo deck that he played earlier, but he made some fatal errors. Backstab is playing very conservatively, not giving his opponent any openings. He ended that game with 2,000 health on both towers.
On both towers, yeah.
There's
Couldn't even
nothing
touch
that
him.
they can do. But here's the catch. He's switched to his alternate Royal Giant deck. Doesn't have Furnace, which has been very, very effective. Has Tombstone instead, which, arguably may or may not be better, right? There's also things like, we still got Skeleton Army. Archers are going to be in there, which could be good, but it's going to be basically up to Backstab to feel comfortable enough with the strategy to adapt with this 4-card different version of the deck and still pull out the win against Brian RT.
Here comes the early Expo.
Best Expo you could possibly play. Right here. Oh, and he does have
There's
it.
the answer. Oh, look, and Brian RT knows it, giving that laughing emote.
I think Brian RT right there was trying to win a coin flip. 50-50 chance. I've got Expo, you might not have Royal Giant. I think in that case, Royal Giant might have actually been the 5th card, but Backstab had the wherewithal, had the situational awareness, comfortably play the Tombstone, and then get the Expo right after.
Log will clear out all the chunky units protecting the Royal Giant. It's going to be taken down, but now we're in the card ordering has already been set.
Yeah, they've got their hands. Here's the thing though. I would take a coin flip 50-50 for $2,000 any day.
Absolutely. I mean, don't forget, the second place player is going home with $500 and the respect of the community. So not easy.
Right.
Here's one thing that's critically different and could be the deciding factor in the game. There's no lightning in this deck of Backstabs. It's Fireball. Now think how many times in the last 2 games lightning has brought Expo so low as to be mostly ineffective. Comparatively, Fireball is going to leave a lot of health on those Expos.
Also, I mean, if Brian RT can place them correctly, then Backstab's not going to get that value of hitting both the tower and the Expo, correct? With the Fireball?
Actually, well, it depends. You're right, though, lightning has a larger radius. You're right, though, if he plays Expo way up at the river, like as far up on the river as he can, it's at least out of range of Fireball.
Yeah,
Okay. But of
There's
course, that doesn't help
that.
you really get by the Royal Giant either.
Sure.
Zap resets the Inferno Tower, but Ice Spirit is the thing that really clears a Royal Giant away, and a good defense from Brian RT again.
Brian RT's down, though, by 2 Elixir at this point, which is not where he wants to be, given the already sort of poor matchup here. It's going to allow Backstab to get back up to 10 and invest Elixir in some way, getting another Tombstone down.
Yep. And he's just going to chain Tombstones back to back to back because there's really no reason to drop it. It's just good fodder for the Expo.
Christian, you're right. Actually, that's out of Fireball range, I believe. But it's so close to the river that it's within Royal Giant range.
There it is.
And fundamentally, that is also the same issue with Lightning, right? If you were going to play the Expo and there's the Ice Spirit jump the river.
It's a pretty full health Royal Giant coming back. It forces the Mega Minion out, but with the Archers and Mega Minion there around, his Mega Minion gets killed and the Royal Giant locks onto the tower.
Ice Golem taking up some small bits of damage, but yet again, another Tombstone.
And as that famous Don McLean song went, this might be the day that Expo dies.
You're calling it a couple times.
Yeah, that's true.
I called it at the start of the show. With 2 players running double Royal Giant, they could lose, but they probably weren't going to lose to an Expo player. And given how much it's been the most popular deck in the meta so far, I don't know.
It's really interesting because with the double deck format, we know that Brian RT made a choice, right? He said that I only want to play Hog Rider once, and that was by far a very, very effective deck I see. I mean, just the way he played in this tournament, you know?
Big challenge, though, that second Tombstone came out of Backstabs. It's actually out of the range. It would not block an Expo, so there was a great opening there for an Expo to lock on, and that really close to the King Tower Tombstone would have been worthless. But look at this little Skeleton Army pushing here on the right side. You can't ignore it. Ooh, I like the far shot. It's outside the range there, and it's going to soak all of those Expo shots. Oh, Psych, or walks out of range.
Well, he knocked him out.
But the log, I think, just came out.
Yeah.
That's right, the log knocked the Royal Giant out, so he had an opening. Zap it to reset the Inferno Tower, or just Fireball.
Takes down the Royal Giant. Yeah, Skeleton Army gets up to that left side tower and does a lot of damage. That was actually dangerously close. If Backstab had not played the Archers when he did, could have actually retargeted onto the tower.
Well, Royal Giant is making a case today.
Yeah.
That's
You have an Expo? Yeah, okay.
Here's my Royal Giant.
And honestly, Royal Giant has not been seen in serious tournament play for a very, very long time. When it first got released, it was strong, but most of its strength in the game has actually been on the ladder where you could over-level it. You could have a level 10, a level 11, level 12 Royal Giant, and those are the really effective ones on the ladder. But the meta has evolved, and even though Royal Giant is weaker than its previous forms, when everyone's running Expo, the Royal Giant is king.
Good for him.
Yeah,
He's gonna come back.
Gets taken down
I'm loving
again. Mega Median coming across, doing what it can against the Royal Giant, but even when you kill this Royal Giant, you are still not getting damage on the tower. And Brian RT is trying to play his Expo the instant that the Royal Giant dies.
Let's not count it out yet, though. There's only a minute 15 left in the game, and both of those towers are kind of healthy.
Yeah.
Brian RT could arguably play for a draw here and try to get another shot at that 50-50 coin flip with the opening Expo.
That's absolutely true. And again, we do have draw rules, and if we do get into that, we will let you guys know. But I think it's a great point. If he does get that draw, and next time he can win that 50-50, this could be a completely different game.
Plays the crossbow defensively to try to stop the Royal Giant from doing very much damage. Actually going for the fireball, and that's definitely not what you want to do if you're trying to stall out
the
this
draw,
game.
right, yeah.
That log takes down the skeletons as well as the tombstone.
I don't know. I'm not exactly. Oh, the log already came out, so the skeleton army could be really effective because the Inferno Tower has nothing to lock onto.
Oh, no.
Might be the fatal error. There's the ice golem to stop a
down.
little bit, but the Royal
ice Spirit
Giant
gets
is
rolled off.
the Royal Giant is
He's got a lot of health.
shooting away at that left side tower.
2, another Royal Giant comes up. He's going for the win here. 23 seconds until a draw. A fatal draw that he doesn't want to lose. Backstab takes the game.
Royal Giant coming through strong for Backstab. He is our winner.
Backstab.
Taking home $2,000 in that trip to move on. Brian RT,
I'm so
a
happy.
well-fought battle, but just couldn't pull it out against those Royal Giants.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm happy for Royal Giant. I'm happy for Backstab.
It's a great day.
Backstab is a very consistent, very strong player. Reads the metagame very well. He's another streamer and a member of a big clan. I am happy to raise him up as one of our 16 Arena Battle Invitationals. And of course, my favorite card, the Royal Giant.
It's the best day.
One more time.
Here's the thing too. What I love is like talking about how these tournaments again are so back to back that when someone sees a meta, they're gonna be able to be like, oh, if that's what everyone's playing, tomorrow I can just bring this deck and do well. Backstab showing that's exactly what he did there. Let's go ahead and go into a replay now against of that last finals battle. Take a look at Backstab's slow climb to victory. Again, a comeback. Being
The
down
Royal
2 games.
Giant is just the perfect card to use based on the amount of Expo decks that were being played in the Coronation days. And really, when you get to the competitive level of Clash Royale that Rumham and I have been experienced with, we are at the forefront of the meta, right? We are where the meta changes.
Yeah.
And players like Backstab are the ones that cause the change to happen because they bring the fight to you, right? They're not going to say, hey, man, I don't like Royal Giant as a card. They don't say any of that stuff. They say, hey, what is going to win for me?
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay.
I'm going to make you have to learn how to play this game better.
That's so awesome.
I'm going to hold these crossbow players honest, right?
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
exactly what he did. Brought 2 Royal Giant decks, punished Brian RT for playing even just 1.
I love the idea of making like these guys are meta makers. Like,
And that's so true. I mean, we saw that with the Super Magical Cup. You would see a deck win the Super Magical Cup, and then the next week, the ladder would be filled with that deck. We've already started to see a little bit of a rise in Royal Giant because of the Expo decks, and I think this solidified it. But more than just deck choice, Backstab was an incredibly smart technical player. You can absolutely lose to Royal Giant or to Expo decks with a Royal Giant simply by being too aggressive with your Royal Giant, getting it killed on offense, and then not having it in hand with an Expo came down. The smartest thing that Backstab did, split his skeleton army, play tombstones, play furnaces, never actually commit the Royal Giant until those Expos were down.
All right, well, there he goes. Let's go ahead and pull the bracket for today so we can just do a quick recap. Rumham, Rainey, walk us through the story that was the Clash Royale North American Open number 4.
Brian RT, the second place finisher, defeats Santi, which is a big name, then goes on to defeat Mango, who had just defeated Marcel P, and then goes on to face Backstab, but unfortunately is faced with a big challenge of having to push through Royal Giant. And I really think that Brian RT, if he's going to come back to these tournaments, should probably think about developing a deck that is not Expo-based. I mean, he's shown that his Hog Rider is very skillful, but how many different Hog Lightning decks can you make while abiding to the double deck format?
So smart, but it just didn't pull out in the end. Okay. Big question of the night. Is Expo dead?
Oh.
I'm going to actually say no. I think Expo is still a very strong, linear, proactive strategy. It just does one thing, but it might be the strongest deck in the entire format when it's doing its thing. If you were to bring double Royal Giant and there's not a lot of Expos in next week's top 8, you could totally get punked out by Hog. I mean, look, we saw Backstab did not look like he was going to win this against a Hog Lightning deck. Nope. Hog Lightning's a very versatile, well-rounded deck. Giant Bowler, very versatile, well-rounded. Royal Giant is going to be there to keep the Expos in check. Good for him. But it's going to be sort of a week-by-week call. All right.
Okay. Well, not only does Backstab take home $2,000 and a chance to move on to the crown duels, but his name will be remembered throughout Clash history.
That is right.
And we have a new clan to join the ranks of
Oh yeah, new clan, new letter. Right. So go to Clash Royale Open and be the next Backstab.
Yeah, ClashRoyaleOpen.com. That's where you guys can sign up again. We have many more of these Coronation days to come. The next one is happening on Sunday, the 30th, the day before Halloween. And guess what card's going to be available during that day? Graveyard! That is right. I'm so excited. I hope we see it.
It comes out.
I'm sure we're going to see it. Yeah.
Like an hour or two. It's real soon.
After this, guys, just look on your phones and just dump all the monies and just get all the legendary cards that you guys can. Because if you have a graveyard, you have a place in my heart.
How many graveyard decks are going to be in Sunday's top 8?
I hope there's going to be 8 of them.
I'm going to say 3. I'll say 3.
Okay, 3 people running graveyard.
I think it's really strong, but it's hard to get a new card. Actually, it took me a long time to get Lumberjack. Took me a long time to get Inferno Dragon.
That's true.
But the people who have it, I think, are going to be very happy with it.
They might just have it in one of theirs. Like, I'm going to show this off, kind of like, haha, I got it, and you guys don't. All right, guys. Well, again, that is going to do it. Congratulations to Backstab for being a B member and joining our Coronation Day champions. And that is all that we have for you guys here. So thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of everyone here at the official Supercell Clash Royale North American Open broadcast out of NGE Studios, that is Rum, Ham, and Raining.
I'm Ella.
And I'm Christian.
Have a most ridiculous night.
Good night.
I'm so glad that my pick.
Woo, Backstab.
What a great thing.
It's only because you got the pick first.